Welcome to Daily Drive for Friday, May 15th, 2026. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, Toyota considers a new $2 billion assembly plant in Texas. Subaru shelves its EV plans to focus on hybrids. And Hyundai's rising sales create problems for service departments. Plus, AutoPayPlus CEO Robert Steenberg joins the show to talk about why dealers shouldn't count on lower interest rates to fix affordability issues.
Price of gas has gone up. There's something else. Some insurance has gone up. There's another one. So, it's not just the vehicle itself. It's everything.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. Toyota is considering a new $2 billion assembly plant in Texas. That's according to documents filed with the state. The project is codenamed Project Orca. Toyota says it would add 2,000 jobs near San Antonio. If built, it would become Toyota's sixth U.S. assembly plant when it opens in 2030. Toyota's U.S. plants are already running at peak efficiency. There's basically no room left to add new products or boost output. And dealers have been asking for new vehicles, like a compact pickup to compete with the Ford Maverick. There's just nowhere to build it. We'll talk more about this story on our weekend drive edition of the show, available Saturday morning. Subaru is putting its electric vehicle plans on ice. The Japanese automaker will focus on hybrids and gas engines instead. Subaru had a brand new plant ready to go, set to open around 2028 to build its own in-house EVs. But now, the plant's opening with hybrids and combustion engines instead. CEO Atsushi Osaki says the company is significantly reducing resources for EV development. And it's easy to see why. U.S. tariffs just wiped out $1.42 billion in earnings. Plus, the automaker took a $362 million charge on its EV investments. And Hyundai's rising sales are actually creating a problem for service departments. They just can't keep up with all the new work. Vice President of After Sales and Customer Experience, Michael Poirier, told Automotive News the issue is a surge in sales. Massive engine recalls costing more than $5 billion and not enough technicians. The fix includes 150 mobile service vans hitting the road by year end, coaching 185 dealerships on efficiency, and recruiting more techs. Poirier says Hyundai should climb back up satisfaction surveys by 2028. And those are today's headlines. You can find more details on all those stories at autonews.com. It turns out hybrids lose fuel efficiency in extreme temperatures, just like EVs. A new AAA study found hybrids drop 23% of their fuel economy when it's 20 degrees, and 12% when it's 95 degrees. EVs take an even bigger hit in the cold, losing 36% of their range. Automotive News Deputy Editor Lindsay Van Hully wrote about it and joins me now. Lindsay, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Hi, Kel.
So, Lindsay, what surprised researchers most about how hybrids performed in cold weather compared to EVs?
I think just the degree to which cold weather took a toll on their range and efficiency. It was the first time that AAA has tested hybrids. 2019, they did this study on EVs, trying to get a sense of what the impact of hot and cold, extreme hot and cold would have on EVs range. And they wanted to test both, whether EV technology has improved, but also if hybrids had similar results when they were exposed to hot and cold temperatures. And, the fact that hybrids, were as affected by cold more so than hot, I think was something that they hadn't necessarily expected. They did do better than EVs slightly. And part of that, they said, is because hybrids also have the internal combustion as part of their design. And so therefore they can sort of capture heat that's generated as engine waste. But just the degree to which the cold weather had an impact on hybrids, I think maybe was not what they were initially expecting before the testing was done.
So why do automakers prioritize getting the cabin comfortable quickly over maximizing efficiency? And what does that mean for drivers?
I think it's a balance, right? That's how AAA described it. That's how some of the automakers that I reached out to described it. And, if you think about it, if it's 20 degrees and you get in your car, you want to be warm as quickly as possible. If it's 95 degrees and you get in that car that's been sitting in the driveway or in the garage, you know what that feels like. It's a really hot cabin. And so, you want to get that air conditioning going as quickly as possible. AAA, the researcher I talked to said, it's a perfectly reasonable strategy, but it does come at that trade-off of range. And so, it's a balance, I think, that automakers are trying to find, is how do you get the cabin comfortable, get it to be the temperature that customers want it to be as quickly as they want it to be, while still, not compromising on range and efficiency. And so a lot of that is part of the R&D work that's ongoing in hybrids and EVs, is how you manage that, what the thermal management systems look like, how the inputs are used, how you're able to generate heat, in those kinds of cold conditions without draining the range and efficiency too much. So it's an ongoing thing. The automakers are certainly aware of it, and they try to balance all of those things with the development of the vehicles.
Perfect. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Cal.
Coming up, AutoPayPlus CEO Robert Steenberg talks about why lowering interest rates won't fix the affordability crisis. That's next on Daily Drive.
New EV sales slipped in April, but the used EV market is telling a very different story. On this week's episode of the Automotive News Shift podcast, I'm joined by Stephanie Valdez-Streety, Director of Industry Insights at Cox Automotive, and Elena Ciccatelli, host and producer of the EVs for Everyone podcast. We break down why new EV sales declined last month, even as used EV sales surged nearly 17% from a year ago.
Looks like a new car, smells like a new car, but it's 40% cheaper.
Plus, my co-host, Hannah Lutz, joins me to talk about the biggest tech issues discussed at this year's Automotive News Leading Women Conference. I'm Molly Boygon. Join me on Shift, available this Sunday wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. Vehicle affordability continues to be a major challenge for dealers and consumers alike. Average new car payments have climbed to around $745 a month. And many dealers believe lower interest rates would solve the problem. But Robert Steenberg, CEO of AutoPayPlus, says that's not the answer. He joins Automotive News' senior retail editor Dan Shine to discuss why a quarter-point rate cut won't move the needle, and how dealerships can help customers by aligning payments with their paycheck schedules.
Bob, thanks so much for joining me on the F&I Friday edition of Daily Drive.
No, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
So I think when we see a lot of dealer surveys, what's ailing dealers, what are dealers concerned about? A lot of the times, they talk about interest rates. Oh, if only interest rates were lower, that could be really solve our problem. And affordability is obviously is a big issue for dealers. But you say maybe that's not the right way to look at that. Explain.
Well, the price of the new cars now averages around $50,000. And if someone lowers interest rates by a quarter point, a half point, that's really not going to do much to a monthly payment. It's not going to do anything really for the affordability. Average car payment, I think, is around $745. I think $735 is like the savings. That's all of a sudden the cars are going to fly off the lot. So like you said, it's more of an affordability issue for the consumer. And they have to find a way to make that payment, which is larger than ever, fit in with the way they run their lives, which is predominantly paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
So instead of one monthly payment, if you get paid weekly, then you should make your payment weekly. Or if it's biweekly, you can make it biweekly. That's the way you budget your lives, and that's the way it's going to smooth out the cash flow and make things at least seemingly more affordable to the consumer.
So how should the industry be looking at this? Saying, okay, this is interest rates, are not really what's preventing consumers from transacting.
Well, I mean, the price of the cars, the dealer's not going to be able to do much about. So to get people down to the payment that the customer's comfortable with, they keep extending out the terms farther and farther and farther. I think 20% of the terms now are over 84 months, and I think the overall average is right around 72. So looking at an $800 a month car payment, it's pretty daunting for most consumers.
Right. So there are 84-month loans out there becoming more and more popular. People shopping for a monthly payment really is what they're only I think they're focused on. What does that do to kind of that's trade-in cycle?
Well, so far we haven't really seen it stretch out much farther than it has historically. I don't believe that can last. I think negative equity now is averaging somewhere around 6,500. The last thing I read from Cox. Inevitably, they're going to have to get past that 3 to 3.5, 4 year cycle and stretch out a year or more further, and that's just going to take more business away from the dealer when they had, historically counted on that, routine trade cycle.
Is service and parts, is that one way to kind of bridge that gap or fill that revenue gap a little bit?
Well, they're going to have to focus on service because they're going to sell fewer cars. And the fewer cars they sell, obviously that's less revenue coming into the F&I office. They have to make it up somewhere. They're not really making it on the front end of the car anymore. So the only place you have left to go is parts and service. And that's why you see the manufacturers pushing so hard on the dealers to get them back for a minimum of 2 or 4 service visits to get some of the dealer money back.
Yeah, it's, and this is not an unusual situation for service and parts to be in because they've, had to carry the load in the past, most recently during the pandemic. So again, but it gets back to, customer retention, customer service, and on the service side of things to get customers to want to bring the vehicles into you as opposed to the shop down the street.
Well, they really need to get back to what they do a long time ago. You used to buy a car, they walked you through the service department, introduced you to the service manager. Somewhere along the line, that kind of got decoupled to where they don't seem to focus on that. Some do, and the good dealers do.
The good ones do, yep.
But, and they don't spend enough time promoting the value of bringing your car back to the dealer service department. And also that it's not going to be 10 times more than going to Jiffy Lube. That's what everybody just naturally assumes, and the dealers to kind of let that get out of hand and think that's a standard thing.
Right. It's about transparency, and even if you're a dealer, kind of go shopping the independent shops around you to kind of see what they're charging for the brakes and the tire rotation, things like that. So you have information to tell your customers, yeah, we're only $10 more than the guy down the street.
Exactly. Don't let them leave thinking that you're 3 times more.
So I mentioned a little bit ago, again, with the 84-month loans, and people again kind of seem like they're kind of searching, they're shopping for a monthly payment is kind of what how do you kind of break that mindset or rethink that mindset?
Well, like I said, if someone's paid biweekly and you say to them, hey, can you afford $400 out of each paycheck to pay for this vehicle, as opposed to can you afford $800 out of the last check? That at least gets them thinking in a way that their brain is used to working for the way they control their finances, and it makes it a much easier pill for them to swallow. Now, by also paying it, weekly or biweekly, you're going to shorten the term of the loan, accelerate the equity in the vehicle, and that will also help the dealers with that, stretched out trade cycle. And
for dealers concerned about affordability, and again, like you said, you can't do much about the sticker price. A sticker price is a sticker price, and your OEM might give you some incentives. Do you have advice or how they can kind of, is it just as simple as customer service and kind of really trying to meet that customer where they are and find out a little bit more? It's going to take a little bit more work to find out where they are payment wise, and it's a little more work, I think.
Yeah, but it's you can't just, in the old days you came in and you had a good credit score, they just assumed you could buy anything. And that's really not the case now. They're going to have to be a little more consultative and talk to the customer. Say, okay, this is about what we're looking at. Is that going to fit comfortably, within, your budget and your lifestyle? It means price of gas is going up. There's something else. Insurance is going up. There's another one. So, it's not just the vehicle itself. It's everything.
The money is being stretched thinner in a lot of different other places, and things are going up. So, yeah. Bob, I really appreciate your time. Great conversation about the affordability issue and kind of facing dealers and consumers, and appreciate your insights.
Anytime, Dan. Thank you.
AutoPayPlus CEO Robert Steenberg spoke with our own Dan Shine. That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Lindsay Van Hully, Larry Velaquette, Hans Grimo, Nato Akamura, and Richard Truitt for their reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on Toyota's expansion plans, auto affordability, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back over the weekend for our Weekend Drive edition of the show. Automotive News reporters Larry Velaquette and Michael Martinez talk about the week's biggest stories, including Toyota considering a new $2 billion plant in Texas.
Right now, we don't know exactly what they're going to build, but we have a strong suspicion it's going to be the long-promised RAV4 compact pickup, as well as some other products.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.